you seen Star Wars?
It's Friday, so that means there's another Star Wars The Mandalorian episode that released, and this one was a surprise from the title alone. Instead of the confrontation being the title, which is what we originally heard months ago, it's called The Passenger, and the action for this episode starts immediately without missing a single beat. We are in a heated fight, and the tension in this episode is really good. It keeps building up until we get some classic Star Wars humor. We also return to an oh-so-familiar cantina with Mando hoping to find out how to find more Mandalorians, which is nice because that, in my opinion, shows that they're still keeping to that story arc, and I would hope that they keep to that for the entire season. Of course, they're going to build on that eventually, but we still know his goals, and they're quite clear of finding more Mandalorians, and I like how they keep both of the episodes that we have seen so far extremely close, and they don't let any time pass between them. We meet a new character that is the passenger for this episode, and Mando, of course, is traveling with them, hence the title, The Passenger. This episode has a lot more Baby Yoda moments too that are adorably cute. The connection between him and Mando have clearly built over the course of their journey together, and they now have an easier time communicating with each other. I actually feel like they're a true duo that is kind of intertwined together. Their fates are sealed, it seems, to be connected together for the rest of the series. And one thing I did like about this is that compared to episode 1 that we had last week, there wasn't a lot of Baby Yoda moments. This one, there's a lot of chemistry between him and Mando. There are some familiar cameos from the first season that were kind of fun to see as well, and some shout-outs to classic films, and I would mainly say Alien or Aliens, if not both of those films. There's more action later that involves some fast ship action that was not only beautiful but fun, and it's not like the typical dogfight kind of action. It's a lot of maneuvers, a lot of beautiful shots. It really looks pretty. Now, last week's episode was kind of a slow build up to the climax and to all the action. This one's different. This is action from start to finish, and it's fast-paced from one location to the next, and I like that. I like world building. What makes this episode show more character for Mando himself is that he has to honor his code when times are hard. His morals kind of come into play again for this story, and he is tasked with rising to the occasion to not only save himself, but others who need him to survive. As I said, there's a lot of tension that builds in this episode from one location to the next, and my arachnophobia started to kick in during this episode, which was not a pleasant surprise. Now, I'm sorry that spoiled part of the episode for you, but after spoiling my pants, I don't care. There's an unlikely but yet Star Wars type of ending to this episode that, in my opinion, did kind of catch me off guard, and it really just has a callback to Season 1, where things that happened in Season 1, the actions that Din Djarin took, affect what happens in his future, and I like that tie-in, because even though the episode that I'm talking about in the first season was kind of a filler episode, it also pays off in this episode that many people will call probably a filler episode. So it doesn't really leave a lot of interest for the next episode, episode 3, that comes out next week, and that's okay, I guess. This isn't like the premiere episode, The Marshal, where at the end you're like, oh my god, I have to know what happens next. Well, now that we know what happens next, sometimes our imagination is a little bit more enticing than the actual story, and it just didn't do much for the overall story and the overall arc of The Mandalorian. Maybe you could argue that there's some character development between Mando and Baby Yoda. Maybe you can argue we learn a little bit more about Mando, but it really just kind of reiterates exactly what we were planning to do in episode 1, and I'm pretty confident with the way this one ended, we're going to see it not miss any time between episodes 2 and 3. Like just how we started this episode, Chapter 10, The Passenger, we started it right off where we left from episode 1 last week. We're going to do the same thing with episode 3. I can almost guarantee you that episode 3 is going to pick up right where this one left off, or chapter 11, whatever you want to call it. And this one actually does remind me, chapter 10 reminds me a lot of chapter 2 from season 1, the second episode. I think it was just called The Child, and in that, it was just kind of a simple adventure for Mando and the child, Baby Yoda, where they were just traveling the planet, they run into some Jawas. It's not much for the overall story of the entire series, but it actually just tells a fun little Star Wars action-adventure story. That's how I felt with this, where I feel like a lot of people are going to leave this one and say, okay, that was a filler episode that I didn't like and I didn't need, and I don't need to see it. And that's okay. I think there's going to be a lot of fans who will feel let down or disappointed with this episode, because like I said, it doesn't do much to progress the overall story, and it reminds me of one complaint that we had for Season 1 which is that half of the season was focused on these kind of filler episodes. But this was directed by Peyton Reed, who directed the Ant-Man movies from Marvel, so as you can expect, it's well directed, it's well shot, it looks really good, and while I like this episode, I have to be honest, it was not the strongest of the series so far. As time goes on, I can see this probably being considered one of the worst episodes in the Mandalorian series by a lot of audiences. Maybe not right now, because we always have recency bias, but maybe as time goes on, we'll look back and go, that was a really big letdown, I guess. And even looking back at season 1, there was the one that Bryce Dallas Howard directed, I think it was called Sanctuary, where he goes to that planet and he meets Cara Dune, and he works with the villagers to fight back against those crime guys or whatever. That was a pretty bad episode. I think this one was slightly worse, for different reasons. I don't think either of them were perfect, but I think this one just didn't do as much for me, and that's okay. And I will say that this is probably an okay episode at best, but I'm pretty sure plenty of fans will actually like the episode. I think it gave us another classic and simple Star Wars action adventure that families can easily tune into and watch together, and we'll have a fun time doing it. The action was fun, there was a lot of tension in different settings and locations that I enjoyed exploring, and it does kind of make me curious to see where episode 3 takes us next week. So I guess in that sense it did its job, but that was really something that only happened within the last 5 minutes. So out of a 10, I would give Chapter 10, The Passenger, a 6.5. It was not a great one, my friends, and I am sorry to say it. And if you liked it, please let me know why. If you didn't like it, let me know why. Just tell me your thoughts below about Chapter 10 of The Mandalorian, The Passenger, and what are your hopes for the next episode that comes out next week, Chapter 11. Thank you all for watching. If you like this video, please be sure to like, comment, or subscribe, because it does help out the channel. I'm Star Wars Only. I will see you all next time, and may the Force be with you always.